Welcome to Exhibition, an Xbox podcast, episode number 31. My name is Samuel Adams, and if you're new to the show, this is a weekly gaming podcast dedicated entirely to the world of Xbox, letting you know the hottest news, the rumors, everything that's going on in the community. But right now, we're in between holidays. Of course, yesterday was Christmas, this week we have New Year's, and a lot of teams around the world are taking well-deserved time off to recuperate, spend time with friends and family, play some games, and of course, get ready for a huge year ahead in 2022. And so, with that in mind, I thought that we would do a bit of a special episode today and look back at some of the biggest Xbox moments of 2021. Now, these are not categorized based on anything other than my own personal hot take. Obviously, this is my personal podcast, so my perspective on the biggest Xbox stories of the year and the biggest happenings in the community of the year might very well differ from yours, and I would love for you to drop me a line on Twitter at JamPackSam or in the comments section on the YouTube version of this show to let me know what your biggest Xbox moments of the year were. But so much happened, from huge game reveals to the redemption arc of Halo Infinite to the reveal and the release of Forza Horizon 5. There is a ton going on. And so without further ado, to kind of look back on 2021 as it comes to a close, here are my top 5 Xbox moments. You can't talk about Xbox in 2021 without talking about the redemption arc of Halo Infinite. And this is coming in my top 5 list because the team at 343 has performed incredibly well under an intense amount of pressure going into this release of Halo Infinite. There was so much riding on this game, and by no means do I think that Halo Infinite is perfect. I have a lot of qualms with the game. I'm still working my way through the campaign because there have been so many in-game events and so much to play, which is the best problem for a gamer to have. But from what I've played so far, the campaign is in a much better spot than it would have been last year, and what it does is provide a very solid foundation to continue building this game and bringing enhancements in the same way that 343 delivered on the Master Chief Collection. And so in terms of this big re-reveal, at the beginning of the year, people did not know what to expect from the Halo Infinite campaign. We saw the reveal last July that was looking solid in terms of gameplay, but visually the game just simply wasn't hitting the mark that it needed to hit. And so going into E3, there was a lot of, wondering, a lot of questioning in the community of would they show Halo Infinite? How could they not show Halo Infinite? And largely, they didn't really show it. They kind of waited until later in the summer and early fall to begin talking about and showing off the campaign. And so here you're seeing a trailer that came out right around the launch of the game about a month ago, a little bit before. And so you see the visual improvements. You see the attention paid to the details surrounding Cortana and Chief and Weapon. And so the redemption arc of Halo Infinite is one of the most significant parts of Xbox in 2021 because of how intertwined Halo and Xbox are as an entity. And we'll talk more in a moment about the 20th anniversary celebrations, but these two IP, Xbox and Halo, they go hand in hand. And you can't talk about one without really talking about the other. And I don't want to make it sound like Halo is an integral part of the Xbox experience. You can completely and totally dive in and enjoy a plethora of games on Xbox without even talking about Halo at all. But from a marketing perspective, from the general gamer's perspective, those that are just looking for a first-person shooter to play on a console, Xbox and Halo go hand in hand, and there was so much riding on Halo Infinite because a successful Halo is going to help guide this generation. And what's interesting about Infinite itself is that it's less of a standalone experience, and it's more so the foundation for what they say is going to be the next 10 years of Halo. In the same way that you see expansions coming to Destiny 2, I assume that's probably going to be similar to what you see happening with the team at 343 when it comes to Halo Infinite. And so if you play the game right now in 2021, it is in a very solid spot. It runs incredibly well. I've run into a couple of hitches around the launch of the game game, but I think that some patches have come to iron those out. And it is in a spot that makes it a respectable Xbox console exclusive in 2021. And I think that is something that took a lot of dedication from the team at 343, and the narrative is solid. And overwhelmingly, it is a huge success for Xbox in 2021, which is why, of course, it is ranking in my top 5 Xbox moments of the year. Now let's talk about one of the biggest wins of the year for Xbox that actually spawned out of one of the lowest points of the year for the brand, and really, in my mind, one of the only low points of the year for Xbox, and that is the Xbox Live Gold price increase. And so if you don't remember this story, and you are an avid follower of Xbox, my big question is, how could you forget? Because on a Friday afternoon, the Xbox team shared this blog post that Xbox Live Gold was going to be, for some reason, increasing in price in 2022, I believe, is what the original plan had been. And of course, the existing subscribers were grandfathered into the existing price for a specific amount of time. So they tried to spin it, but ultimately, what this was, from the perspective of the majority of players, is the Xbox team trying to strong arm you into upgrading from an Xbox Live Gold subscription to a Game Pass Ultimate subscription. Because increasing the price of Xbox Live Gold by any amount is just pushing it closer to that $15 per month subscription. But ultimately, some people don't want to pay the $15. Now, for me, Xbox Live is still just a baked-in part of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and I'm someone who enjoys the exploration engine that Game Pass provides. I love trying out new games, and seeing these day-and-date releases is just adding more and more value to the service. But Xbox Live Gold, in my mind, is the smallest part of this entire setup right now because the Games with Gold program is lacking in nearly every way. I mean, for January, the biggest game that we have is an old Space Invaders game on the Xbox 360. There really isn't that much to look forward to with this service. And so, to increase the price just felt kind of underhanded, especially when it wasn't providing enough value to warrant a price increase. And in my mind, if they were to have come out and said, hey, the price of Game Pass Ultimate is increasing, I wouldn't be happy about it, because at the end of the day, I'm paying out of pocket for this and it's still a subscription that I have to consider. But it would have been expected because of the amount of content they are delivering. Now, since then, Phil Spencer has said Game Pass Ultimate is fine and profitable at the price that it's set. So that's a topic for another day. But Xbox Live Gold, totally different situation. And so once the community reacted in an overwhelmingly negative way to this news, then you saw Xbox backtrack and say, okay, we are no longer going to be increasing the price. And on top of that, the community brought up the fantastic point that on the PlayStation side of the fence, free-to-play games were actually free. And so in a world where free-to-play games have become more and more common, we have Apex Legends, Call of Duty Warzone. At the time Halo Infinite was set to come out in the fall, these games would have still required an Xbox Live Gold subscription to actually use the online service. So it wasn't truly free-to-play, which made PlayStation the immediate choice for those that are just enjoying games like Fortnite. And of course, we'll talk about that more in a moment as well. But actually, we'll go ahead and jump to that now. If you have these bundles that are selling like hotcakes this holiday season, the Xbox Series S is the #1 best-selling console this holiday season, and you have bundled in these Xbox Series S consoles some Fortnite cosmetics and some Rocket League cosmetics, these are two big free-to-play games. This person would have still had to go buy Xbox Live Gold had this free-to-play games update not been included, which would have been backwards in my mind. And so this added an incredible amount of value to the Xbox brand for those budget-based gamers because they don't need any kind of subscription service at all to jump in and play Halo Infinite on the Xbox One, Series S, or Series X. That is a huge win. And so that big benefit, that big perk of the year, the big win for the year, actually came from a huge misstep, and ultimately it came from Xbox turning around and listening to the community. Because as much goodwill as the brand has built up over the course of the past couple of years with Game Pass and with the launch of the Series X and S, with a few missteps like that, without any kind of backtrack or apology or amends being made, you could be back at square one. And so it was nice to see that Xbox reacted positively to that feedback and was able to implement those changes very quickly to immediately take back that statement within a couple of hours of the actual post itself and turn this huge L into a massive W for the entire year. 2021 was not only a big year for Xbox in and of itself, but it was also the 20th anniversary of the brand and of Halo. That's a pretty big milestone, and Xbox celebrated in a very big way. I'm talking about in-game cosmetics, I'm talking about themes, I'm talking about limited edition controllers and headsets and collaborations with clothing brands. They had it all for 2021, and of course you can head over and check out everything here on their 20th anniversary landing page. But the biggest point that I want to make here in terms of the 20th anniversary is that Microsoft and Xbox have done a fantastic job of tapping into those emotions that players have when connecting with their consoles and when connecting with other players through the world of Xbox. And I think that's something that not every community really has. Xbox is doing that in a very significant way that PlayStation isn't truly excelling at right now. And I think that is a big reason why so many people have an affinity for the Xbox brand and a growing affinity for the Xbox brand. And I consider myself to be amongst that group where in 2021, I've started this Xbox podcast. I've shifted my content entirely over towards the Xbox side of things because that's where I see the most value in the world of gaming. And that's where the majority of the news is coming from. And there are so many wins to talk about while celebrating all of those that have come in the past and the missteps along the way. Now, if you scroll down through this landing page, we have the 20th anniversary celebration events that happen on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all throughout the year. You had some wallpapers celebrating Halo and Xbox, some FanFest events, the Xbox Museum. If you had not had a chance to check that out, highly recommend that you do. You get to see your stats through the years, the first games you played on each console, the first time you logged into Xbox Live, all of these big personal milestones, while also looking back to see what was happening to Xbox on a global scale throughout the years. And that kind of insight is something that I think is fantastic while celebrating the 20th anniversary. Now, on top of that, we also had Power on the Story of Xbox. And if you haven't checked out this documentary series on YouTube and a variety of other streaming services, it tells you the inside story of the wins, the failures of building Xbox, of making it into a brand, of this small team of passionate developers that wanted to do something greater within Microsoft. And they had this idea, and they did everything that they could to bring it to reality. And so to see the stories being told and to see the legacy being honored through stuff like the over 70 new additions to the backwards compatible library with auto HDR and with FPS boost and so many other benefits that are coming from that backward compatibility. Xbox did a great job this year of honoring their legacy while giving us a taste of what's to come. And I think that Halo Infinite really captures that because you see tons of innovation. You see a new open world that you can explore, but at its core, it's still based on the Silent Cartographer from Combat Evolved. You still have those same feelings. It evokes those same emotions. And when you look at 20 years of Xbox, you see an honor brought to the legacy while, again, celebrating the games that we have today that have come through those 20 years. And so one of the biggest moments of 2021 really came from all these individual moments of celebrating the history of Xbox and the community that has come around it. You know, from in-game cosmetics in Forza Horizon 5 all the way to wallpapers, and as I said, limited edition controllers, which I picked up one, and headsets and so many things that you can pick up and buy, t-shirts, whatever. It's just a really fun time to be a part of this community as it hits such a big milestone, and it was a defining moment for me in 2021 for Xbox. Now let's talk about the big kahuna, E3 2021. This was kind of a return to form for E3 because you did have conferences that were held, and they weren't really virtual conferences. These were held on a stage, and Xbox presented in a huge way. We had a very long showcase hosted by Paris Lilly of the Kinda Funny Xcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to on a weekly basis. And during that presentation, we got a look at not only huge announcements of games in general, but a ton of games coming to Xbox Game Pass. And that's really the point that I want to drive home in terms of E3 and in terms of these big grand game reveals that we got. Game Pass is a standout generation defining feature for Xbox. It is winning players over. And of course, right now, PlayStation is working on a genuine competitor. We talked about that a couple of episodes ago. But right now, Xbox has something unique in the gaming sphere where you can pay a flat monthly fee and get access to basically every game that you would really need to play, especially if you're not picky about what you play. You have hundreds of games at your disposal. And at E3, these games were on full display. We're talking about Starfield. We're talking about Stalker 2. We're talking about, at a later date, as announced, Back 4 Blood. We have Contraband coming, Sea of Thieves, A Pirate's Life. You had an entire Pirates of the Caribbean expansion ready to rock for Sea of Thieves. And then on top of that, you also had smaller games like 12 Minutes, my worst gaming experience of the year, but you still had it, and Psychonauts 2, of course, one of the best games of the year, a nominee for a variety of awards at the Game Awards. And so you have so many things to look forward to. Hades, a third-party game coming to Xbox Game Pass at launch, was a huge win at E3 2021, and that's just the beginning, because there have been so many Game Pass announcements since that time. And this is, of course, on top of the free-to-play Halo multiplayer, and on top of so many other big AAA games that I didn't even mention here, like the Halo Infinite campaign, like Forza Horizon 5. And again, like games like Aliens Fireteam Elite. That's a game that came out this year that is now available on Game Pass. And so the announcements made at E3 were groundbreaking, in not that they were these new franchises that we had never heard of before, or these new innovative games that were completely changing the game itself, although we did get a couple of those. What we have here is a growth of Game Pass in a way that shows Microsoft is doubling down, and that their doubling down signals this is working, this is winning, this is competing in a way that they've never really been able to compete before. And so innovating their business model and bringing this in such a huge way for E3 really show that the next year plus is going to be fantastic for those that are subscribing. And again, going back to the changes for Xbox Live Gold, that just makes that service even more lackluster. And convincing players to upgrade rather than strong-arming them into an upgrade is what has to be done. And how do you convince someone to get on a subscription service? You deliver the content. You see it with Disney Plus, where there are tons of advertisements with Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings floating around out there. That gets a subscription. You see The Witcher Season 2, Netflix gets a subscription. You see The Matrix Resurrections coming to HBO Max, that gets a subscription. Blade movies are also on there. No promotion, just saying. And so those kind of moves where you convince someone to upgrade, that's what Xbox is doing here with not only the acquisition of Bethesda and bringing those games into the fold as console exclusives, but on top of that, bringing third-party partners into the mix, and bringing also Game Pass Ultimate benefits where you have in-game cosmetics like Halo shaders that you can unlock and various weapon charms and things like that. Being able to bring value, it was one of the biggest wins of the year when it came to Xbox, specifically at E3, but across 2021 as a whole. Finally, to round out my top 5 Xbox moments of the year, we have the Xbox Series X mini fridge. This was one of the best marketing moments that Xbox has had since the leaked Xbox Series S and the meme heard around the world that actually ended up winning a Twitter award earlier this year that made the Xbox Series X mini fridge happen. It's just this big continual cycle. And so if you don't know the story behind this, basically last year around the middle of summer, when the Xbox Series S accidentally leaked, Xbox replied with the puppy or the puppet monkey meme that kind of is like dodging its eyes back and forth. And so that was all but confirming that the console was, of course, real. We saw some box art that had the Xbox Series X and S logo that we all know very well at this point. And so it was a friendly way to confirm that something was happening without making the brand feel like it was having to put out a PR statement. And it was a very late night tweet. And so, of course, that was one of the biggest moments of 2020. But it was then voted on. And during this vote, when it was going up against another brand for the best tweet of the year or some other award like that, they said, hey, if you vote for us and we win this, we will make the Xbox Series X mini fridge actually happen. Lo and behold, the community came together and Xbox pulled it out, and there you have it. The Xbox Series X mini fridge was officially born, and a partnership is now ongoing with Target, with other retailers set to come in 2022. Now, I will say, from what I've heard, this mini fridge is total trash. Does not really work in terms of cooling. I wouldn't put anything more than a couple of cans of Mountain Dew in there. Of course, this is not meant to really be a functional mini fridge. It performs, but it doesn't, hold its weight when it comes to other big mini fridges. But what it's meant to be is a piece for a backdrop like mine behind a podcast, for a game room, if you have one of those. It's a talking point, and it does an incredible job of that. But overwhelmingly, this for me in 2021 represents that Xbox is keeping it casual and they know how to connect with the community. They are listening to the memes. Whenever this console was debuted during the Game Awards 2019, yes, it has been 2 years. You immediately saw people saying this thing looks like a damn mini fridge, and lo and behold, it did. And lo and behold, they made one. And so being able to own the conversation and become a part of the conversation and turn these potential digs at a console into huge marketing moments is something that the social media team is doing incredibly well over there. And of course, this partnership is going to continue. I would love to see these continue to come out, and maybe even a Nuka-Cola machine whenever the next Fallout launches. That would be pretty neat to see as well. But while it might not be the best mini fridge on the market, a $99 Series X mini fridge is going to be the talk of the town, and it absolutely was, and it dominated the conversation in terms of marketing moments for 2021 in the world of Xbox. And so there you have it, my top 5 Xbox moments of the year. As I said, these are just a small handful of the thousands that were had. The big Game Pass editions, the big announcements for games coming in the future, and of course, more 20th anniversary celebrations. There were so many big moments, and again, I would love to hear what yours were. You can find me over on Twitter at JamPackSam. You can find me on YouTube, JamPackSam. Leave a comment on the video down below. But in general, 2022 is ramping up and starting to look like an even bigger blockbuster year for Xbox after this one, coming off of Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon 5. We have talk of Forza Motorsport 8, Starfield is coming out, and tons of third-party collaborations coming to Game Pass, so even more to look forward to there. And we are going to be looking forward to those during next week's episode, which while today we were looking back on the top 5 moments of 2021, I'm going to be looking forward to my top 5 most anticipated games of 2022 to come out on January the 1st as your podcast for the week. Very exciting stuff. And then on top of that, the following week, hopefully, we'll be returning to our regularly scheduled programming with some talks with friends, with some discussions around what's happening in the world of Xbox, and all of that good stuff. Very excited for another year. On a personal note, I do want to say thank you for the support in 2021, because starting off, I had the Jam Pack Report, which was a daily generalized gaming news podcast, and I immediately knew that something had to change because that was a lot of work. I wasn't gaining enough traction with it. It was just a ton of effort for a little return, and it wasn't really what I wanted to do anymore. And so throughout 2021, I started focusing more on Xbox content. I fell more and more in love with the brand, and on top of that, I was able to obtain a much more reasonable work-life balance when it comes to what I do here on YouTube. And I started posting shorts rather than videos throughout the week, and I really regained a sense of being a player. I really was able just to enjoy games and spend more time with those games and then talk to you all on a weekly basis on a much more specific kind of scale. And I think that the content that I make is all the better for it. I've had some fantastic conversations with some newfound friends, and I look forward to those more in 2022. I've interviewed developers, which is something that was totally new for me, and I've even found some time for some freelance writing over at Game Skinny. If you guys want to find my bylines, I've been doing some of that as well. But 2021 overall has been the best year of my life, and everyone watching this episode has been a part of that and has played a role in that. And I really do appreciate the support throughout the year. And again, as I said, I could not be more excited about 2022. So, with all of that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic, weird week in between Christmas and New Year's. I know a lot of those in the corporate world are kind of just struggling trying to find something to do, and you could even be listening to this at work as you sit and wait for that clock to strike 5. But no matter how you're spending your holiday season, I do hope you have a fantastic time, and I hope you are just as excited about 2022 as I am. But until next time, you guys have a good one, and keep on playing.